Martha Zoller Show, and that's some audio from Teaneck, New Jersey, where people did the right thing. They got together, they sang the National Anthem, and they got rid of the very negative protesters. We're going to talk with Lisa Wexler about that in just a moment. But first, let's go to the phones and talk to Joe in LJ. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Martha, great show as always. I just want to say that I was really thrilled yesterday to see the Wall Street Journal poll showing that Trump was ahead in 6 of the 7 states. As you know, last time he lost, I think, all but one. So I think we're going to have a huge landslide Trump victory. And I also want to mention that we have I love the stock market. We have a guy over here, Jared Aaron, who I think is a young Warren Buffett. He buys blue chip dividend paying stocks, and I think he's a superstar. And also, I continue to hear from all over Georgia about Mallory Staples and Rich McCormick. In my opinion, they're the two most popular political leaders in Georgia, and I just wanted to say that on your show. And keep up the great work. You always have a wonderful show.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it very much. Joining me right now is Lisa Wexler, who we get together on a regular basis. Lisa's a talk show host in Connecticut. She's also a lawyer and a probate judge, and she is a proud Jewish woman. And Lisa, Teaneck, New Jersey is one of those towns that has a very high Jewish population. And over the weekend, there were pro-Hamas protesters that were yelling and protesting outside of a synagogue, and they got drowned out by a group of residents that got together and sang the National Anthem. And I feel like that's a turning point, that it was a positive thing that happened by people peacefully protesting and saying, no, we're not going to have this in our town.
Well, it's interesting because in Teaneck in particular, around March 12th, a few weeks ago, they had 750 pro-Palestinian protesters show up to a temple, which had some kind of program about something going on in Israel, selling some real estate in Israel because some Jews maybe want to have a second home there or aliyah there or they have family there. So sometimes there's this, sometimes there's some marketing about communities going on. And 750 pro-Palestinian protesters drowned out the event. And that's a lot of people in keffiyehs and all their stuff, and they shout a lot. Hey, listen, in the Radio City Music Hall thing with the two former presidents and Joe Biden were on the stage, I had a friend who was there, Martha, and in the 7th or 8th row, the most expensive ticket, we're talking thousands of dollars, they got up and heckled, one guy in particular got up and heckled Obama on the stage. So they want to disrupt and interrupt all kinds of public gatherings for everything. That's what they do. And so I agree with you. It was heartening to see that this time something else erupted from the crowd and it was more positive. But generally speaking, you wonder objectively, and I don't have an objective side of my body on this conflict. I'm very pro-Israel. But you wonder objectively how you think people are going to come to your side and understand where you're coming from when you behave this way. But maybe I'm very naive. Maybe the point is to get in the papers and exert pressure on politicians. Maybe they're very successful. I don't know.
Well, and you also had the Easter service at St. Patrick's Cathedral that was interrupted with protesters. And it's just, to me, going as far as disrupting religious services. I don't care whose they are. I don't care if they're,
I agree with you.
If it's a mosque, you shouldn't disrupt it. If it's a church, if it's, it's just a step too far. Now, your point that you bring up is an interesting one because from a PR standpoint, the discussion has been, the Hamas has been successful in getting people to talk about their position on this issue. And I'm like you, I admit wholeheartedly that to me, this is a right and wrong issue, not a left and right issue. And it's very clear what the right side of this issue is. So, and you saw again this week, this horrible thing that happened with the aid workers that were killed in Gaza, and the IDF got out there immediately. It was the wrong thing to do, no doubt about it, but they got out there, they're investigating, and you're getting the best information on what happened from the IDF because they're admitting to it and talking about it.
Right, which you rarely see in other circumstances.
I mean, heck, in our own country, right after the 13, in our own military, right after the 13 Marines were killed in Afghanistan, we supposedly went after the group that did it, and we accidentally killed a family instead of killing, and nothing said about that. I mean, it was not covered up. We didn't see the president talk about what a tragedy it was. They just moved on from it.
That's right. That's right. And it is, by the way, a tragedy that happened to these 7 aid workers. And I think that the burden of proof is definitely on Israel to explain to the world how this happened and why it happened. And, you can't bring these people back. But I saw this morning that other Gaza food shipments have been turned back out of Gaza. And you wonder why they're doing that. Like, that was befuddling to me. The people still need the food. The food has already been paid for. What are they saying? They're afraid that the IDF is going to kill them too. It's very unlikely. This was a very unusual, horrible circumstance that happened. I don't know.
Yeah,
you can't really make heads or tails about what's going on there, Martha. It's very, it's a moving conflict. Everybody's got an agenda when they report something to the press. People say privately things that they don't say publicly. It's, you know what I mean? It's really, we're not getting what's going on there. I mean, I'm going to tell you I can tell you what I know that's going on there. The Israelis would like to get rid of Netanyahu, most of them, not all of them, but most of them. It looks like Benny Gantz this morning is calling for an election in the fall, and he's going to have the overwhelming support of the Israeli people who feel that Netanyahu should have at least offered his head on a sword. They might not have taken it, but they felt like he should have offered it. And we'll see what happens in terms of getting new leadership there. But notwithstanding that, there is 100% resolve. They want the hostages back. They don't want to negotiate with people who don't want to give them back the hostages. They do not want this to ever happen in their borders again. They want to rout out the Hamas leadership, which hides under women's skirts and under hospitals in unfathomable tunnels that the brave IDF is going one by one to try and get rid of. This is, as far as the Israelis are concerned, this is an existential fight for the next generation or more, and they are not going to let up until they feel that the other side has been vanquished. There's not going to be a permanent solution here per se, because there is no permanent solution. Martha, this is the Middle East. This is the Middle East. But for this generation of Israelis, and I speak to a lot of them, a lot, and I'm not talking about religious or non-religious, I'm talking about, generally speaking, people you and I would recognize, they're of one mind on this. That's it. They feel they have to defend themselves. That's it.
Yeah, and that's, we have to understand that that's what they're doing and that's what they need to be doing. And we cannot forget that we cannot trust an organization that will say tens of thousands of people have died when they will not account for the 130-some people that are still being held as hostages.
Correct.
And that is, they could easily make this better for themselves. Because you think the pressure's on Israel to back off now. If they release the hostages, the pressure would be huge for them to back off. And
by the way, and it would be a different war. I think they would back off. That's the point.
Yes, absolutely. It would be much more of a special forces kind of operation.
Correct.
If the hostages were released. Lisa Wexler, thank you so much for being with us today.